Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to what is the closing session of the Caribbean Virtual Language Festival, run by the Society for Caribbean Linguistics. We've been having quite an enthusiastic response for the festival thus far. This is the closing session that we're in now, and this session is called a community panel. Essentially, what we'd like to do this morning is to talk to community members from Guyana as well as Costa Rica about innovative ideas and initiatives that they've undertaken in their respective Creole languages. The procedure for this morning's session will be that we will have Professor Hubert Devonish, Professor of Linguistics at the University of the West Indies, Professor Emeritus at the University of the West Indies, who will be interviewing community members from Guyana about an initiative that was undertaken in their country having to do with public service announcement translation for the ongoing pandemic. For 35 minutes, that interview will happen. After which we'll have Renee Zuniga, who is an executive officer of the Society for Caribbean Linguistics, interviewing community members from Costa Rica, in particular speakers of Limonese Creole, about interesting initiatives that they've been having in their country as well. At the end of both interviews, I will have a 15 to 20 minute question and answer session from anybody who is viewing, as well as other persons who might have joined with us on Zoom. So welcome everybody. I'm going to ask Professor Devonish to unmute his mic. Good. Professor Devonish, could you just introduce the community members that you are talking to and tell us about the project in a nutshell and go right into your interview questions for them?
Okay, right. So, well, hello everybody. Well, of course, I'm Guyanese and have had an interest in stuff going on in Guyana. This particular effort, community effort, is happening and has been happening for 5 months or thereabouts. And I think it's really important to have, while it's going on, to record it, to make a record. So the idea behind me approaching Joanne to do this particular interview was in order to try to put on record all, or at least as much as possible, of the ongoing activities and the initiatives and so on. In a sense, it's current oral history. In other words, we're doing oral history, but not waiting for it to become history, but actually interviewing the participants as the thing is taking place, live and direct. So they're in the middle of the COVID-19 translation project, but already stuff that was done in March and April is ancient history. Many of the participants have already started to forget where it began, and we really need, as a result of this, within this particular framework, to have a permanent oral record of the beginnings of this project. So this is why it's important. Now, the key players here are, of course, Charlene. Charlene Wilkinson, University of Guyana. She is also the coordinator of the Guyana Languages Unit, and is in a way for want of a better word, she'll tell you she's not a linguist, but best described as a language activist. She's a live wire. She gets things done. Then we've got the linguist in the house, Tamirand Lisser, nice Caribbean, pan-Caribbean involvement because she is Jamaican and so on, and speak of Jamaican Creole. So Tamirand is the linguist in the house, who is also a member of the directorate, if you want to call it that, of the Guyana Languages Unit. And then you have a critical person, Ovid Williams. Now, Ovid Williams is an indigenous person in Guyana, and no, a shame because I might give him the wrong ethnicity. But if I was to, let me see now, is Arekuna? I'm too sure, but anyway, Ovid will tell you which language group he comes from, right? But I know it's one of the right. I know it's one of the Caribbean languages in Guyana. So but Ovid is critical in another sense. He brings to the issue of communicating in the 8 or 9 indigenous languages in Guyana a very clear sense of who is where, what languages are spoken where, and so on. Now, he's got, for example, a compendium of, I think, 220 locations where there are indigenous language communities or people of indigenous ethnicity. But he's got that along with who the contact people are, whether they have access to radio, they have access to telephone, they have access to internet, they have access to none, right? And all kinds of different combinations, right, exist because Guyana is a relatively big country relative to most of the countries except, I guess, maybe even Costa Rica, right? And remote, because these areas are remote because they tend to be in the interior, not great road communication, much of it involving communication by air and so on. So you've got this complex situation where Guyana borders Venezuela, and you have linguistic groups on the border. You've got like Warrau, for example, and Lokojan. And then in the south, you've got Suriname. Not Suriname, Brazil, where the pandemic has taken off like nothing. And that's really threatening the borders of Guyana. And of course, the language groups straddle the borders. And same for Suriname to the east, where you've got Lokojan and I think Wai Wai communities straddling the borders and so on. So it's a complicated situation where you've got 9 indigenous languages plus Guyanese Creole, or what we call Creolese. That's 10 languages. And messages needing to go out in all of these languages, and all of these languages viewed by the authorities as not important. So that's the core, or the reason for the project, number one. And secondly, the importance of us documenting the process by which this communication thing is taking place and so on. That's number one. And we are also probably witnessing the development of a drive to give these languages more official status. So who knows? Maybe COVID-19 did bring some good. All right. So I'm going to begin by asking Charlene. So I'll go in order. I will ask Charlene about the beginnings of the project because she is very much the originator. I'll talk to Tamirand about the linguistics of it. And we're going to talk to Ovid about the underground issues. How do you get all these fancy terminologies translated about social distancing and about the classic thing about sanitizing hands and with alcohol, product and that kind of stuff. So we're going in the order of the in a sense the catalyst, the person who makes the thing happen, then the technical person, Tamirand on the linguistics, and then Ovid, the underground man who at least can talk about 9 of the languages. Of course, Tamirand and Charlene are also in the Creolese business, so they can bring some underground elements to that as well. And they will also talk about the training that went on and where things are going from going forward. So, first of all, starting with Charlene. Tell me, how did the project start? Yes, right. So so starting with Charlene, what happened? How this project suddenly come about? I mean, COVID had been around already, so why bother to do this stupidness? Because as you well know, the Guyana authorities don't think much about these languages. Why bother?
Right. Well, to be honest with you folks, the catalyst, there are probably 2 catalysts in the whole thing. And the first catalyst that kind of removed himself almost immediately, but probably not unchanged, was Pro-Chancellor himself of the University of Guyana. As soon as we were made aware that the pandemic had hit Guyana and that we had a few cases already, Pro-Chancellor Joe Singh, who happens to be an old soldier, and who happens to know the country very well, sent a message to the university community saying, we should jump in and help to transmit some of these messages in the different languages. And of course, me, the second catalyst, came on board and said, without even having any sense of how this thing was going to happen, I said, yes, Pro Chancellor, we will do that. The Guyanese Languages Unit will be very happy to support this project. And so what I did almost immediately was communicate with Ovid. And Ovid said this, right? Ovid said, oh, but Michelle has already contacted me and I'm already translating some messages. I said, really? Which languages are you doing? And of course I'm listening and I don't hear Creolese. So I call Michelle. Now Michelle happens to be the manager for the community radio stations in Guyana. She's a really wonderful person to have on your side. And I said, Michelle, what's going on? And she told me what happened, that they had this meeting in the Ministry of Health, and they sent out a few messages in 5 indigenous languages. So, and she gave me the Ministry of Health contact. So this is really what happened. It is a kind of a small network there already, okay? Not so much on the ground in the indigenous communities, but in the capital city of Georgetown. And so as soon as I realized that the ministry was open to listening, and the radio station was of course open to continue advertising further messages, I contacted a few people that I knew. I looked for at least one person who was fluent in each of our 9 indigenous languages. And I contacted Tamir's class in Guyanese Creole, because Tamir has been teaching a course. The first ever course is another part of the thing that probably needs to be recognized, that there's this Jamaican woman in Guyana teaching the first ever course in Guyanese Creole at the university. So some of her students came on board. One of them stayed longer than the others. 2 of them stayed on actually. Well, okay, I could leave it at that point and jump in later on. So we had a kind of inchoate, unformed, voluntary event where people just came, yes, I will help. I know the language a little, I know it, I don't know the language very well, but I can get some elders to help me in the community. And this is basically how we started. We were not institutionalized, so to speak.
And then, yes, Charlene, keep going. You don't start, you tell me we start. I'm saying to you, Charlene,
okay.
Tell us what happened. Tell us about the project. Tamirand will do the linguistics. Tell us, we're not jumping in because we don't have a lot of time. So tell us the story, full story.
Right. So the story goes that I go to the external member of the GLU, who is right here interviewing us, Professor Devonish. And what he does is help us to make it a little more formal and structured by setting up a course that ran for about 8 or between 8 and 12 hours. We met once per week for an hour and a half, and we discussed the issues of translating indigenous languages from English, all the issues involved. One of the challenges, of course, was people in the far-flung regions of Guyana had difficulty reaching us because we had to have these messages by Zoom, okay? So we had some people who were able to attend the course and some people were not. So the communications were through the networks, by phone, by WhatsApp, and people talking to the young members talking to the elders to get help with the languages. So what I'm jumping to the final product of this project really is, as a message comes in from the Ministry of Health, we send it out to the young people that we were in touch with and some of the elders who had phones. They would make contact with the people who were fluent in the languages, and we would have the translations done both orally and in text. So what we had was a 4-column grid, so to speak, with English on one side, the language translated in the other, the back translation in the third column, and the fourth column for any justifications. So the technicality of this project was very new to everybody on board, really. And what was amazing to me is how fast people got in tune with it, as if it was part of them. I need people to remind me of things.
All right, well, all right, I can hit Tamirand with a question, which is, Tamirand, the
Yes.
politics dealing with the Ministry of Health now. Talk to us about how that worked out, the meetings with the Ministry of Health, what was the issues about the text that they generated, their need to check and that kind of stuff. So you had you're part of that too. So tell us a bit about that.
Right. So as Charlene indicated, we would get the messages from the Ministry of Health. But what we realized, well, the very first set of messages, when we got them, we realized that, but this English, even though it is supposed to be English, it itself is not very clear. So we saw where for some of the messages, we needed to restructure them a little bit, some more drastically. Another major issue is that the Ministry of Health tend, in some cases, to get the things from the WHO, and in some cases, they were not necessarily culturally relevant to the Guyanese society. So for example, we have messages that will tell you to sanitize with hand sanitizer. Most Guyanese, well, besides those who are on the coast and directly in Georgetown, let me not even say on the coast, because most of us are on the coast, or most of them. Now I'm saying us as if I'm Guyanese. But yeah, most Guyanese would live along the coast, but outside of Georgetown, a lot of people would not even be aware what exactly do we mean by hand sanitizer. So we realized that in translating some of these messages, it became a little bit difficult in the sense that we need to fix this text so that it becomes culturally relevant. We had meetings with the ministry because in the first instance, we didn't want to just go ahead and make changes and then they didn't like, or I don't know. But we decided to meet with them to work on the text, to tell them what is it that we saw as problematic and what are the suggestions for fixing. We did that. Generally, they were very welcoming to our changes or suggestions, and they indicated to us that yes, we could make things different as we see fit. In order to do that, we used the translation template that we designed with the section for the Black translation and also a section for comments, where in events where we had to modify a text, we would explain exactly what is it we did and the verifications of doing so. Yeah, so that was really getting the messages in a way that they become relevant to the Guyanese people, because as we realize, most of the message, not most, sorry, some of the messages that came from the WHO were for a general audience and would not necessarily apply. We also had cases because these people in the ministry are not necessarily well, they're definitely not linguists. And probably some of the concerns they would not necessarily take into consideration. So little things that regard gender, for example, they would not necessarily look at. So to have a public service announcement sent to the entire population but yet we make it seem as if, okay, only the men are playing dominoes, or women are not at risk because we try to target a particular audience, which would be wrong. So some of these, we try to make them also a little bit more opaque, and sorry, we make them a little more transparent. Right. So yes, that's is it as it relates to the direct contact, really working with the ministry. We found that they were very supportive in other means. They indicate, well, I'm not sure if I should discuss that, but in terms of, they decided later for us to be compensated for our services. So the translators were recognized. They realized that this was something that is valuable, something that is time consuming, and something that people should be recognized for. And that was done. I think that is it for the interaction directly with the ministry. Of course, there are other things. I don't know, Prof. I'll wait on the questions.
All right, well, let me shift over for now and ask Ovid now from the point of view of the person who helped the project a lot in terms of the liaising with the indigenous or speakers of the indigenous languages, and he's himself a speaker and translator, right, in one of them, to give us the take from his perspective, because in a way, I suppose Charlene has a Creolese, and so does Tamirand, a Creolese perspective. Ovid is the man who was the project's contact with the speakers of most of the, and the 9 indigenous languages, and helped the project to get its act together in that area. So over to you, Ovid. Give us a sense of your take on the project and how it has been working out with the indigenous communities that you know about. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you very much, Professor, and good afternoon, everyone. 2 years ago, I had established a translation service group covering all the 9 indigenous languages. So when Ms. Charlene contacted me and to make my input into this venture, I used the co-translators that I had for the service to start with. One of the challenges that we met with, however, was the technical jargon that the advisories came with, and to find the appropriate translations in our languages. For example, that it is a non-living organism, for example, for them to understand that they were asking how is it that a non-living, which is a non-living they would assume dead, can make somebody sick. How do we get that into an advisory? Even the word COVID, coronavirus 19, to break it down for them to understand it, to find a similar word in the language would change the complete meaning. And the closest in two of the languages that we came to for COVID was Quebec, but that is a green frog that is used for other purposes in the jungle. So we stuck to the original COVID in the translations. Our lifestyle in the traditional way, for example, we've never really had curfew. Masks generally. Hand sanitizers, we hardly use that. So all of these things, to find the translation, it was a challenge. And we had to use, in most cases, the comparative translation, which was giving a comparison, like if you're going to use this, it is something like this, and do a comparison to complete the translations. The response has been amazing. However, that also clashes with our cultural beliefs. Some of the villages say that they can blow, they have a cow horn, that they normally would send signals. If there's a village meeting, there's so many blows on it. It's a signal system. And they had to use that. They normally would blow the hole, not the outside of the horn, where they create it and they blow it. And they said, however far that sound reaches, that creates a boundary where the sickness cannot penetrate. Now, this is an indigenous belief. And for example, we have something in our society we call kanaima. That is when a group of people would come and stalk and kill people. They would do something like that, and that wards off the kanaima from the village. These are traditional beliefs that we try to bring together for these illnesses, and they said they can use it. It's only now that in Region 9, which is the southwestern part of Guyana, that a lot of cases are coming across from Brazil. But the villages that are using this belief is not very many. So, but I think with the moving about of people from village to visit to see if they can render help. For this COVID, I think they're being restricted. Visits to other villages that have residents there, relatives. So there's a bit of a contradiction because somebody who has shamanic powers want to visit an area to cure them, but they're saying that that person might transfer the disease. So there's a bit of contradiction how to deal with that. I think the task force, the government task force, will have to look into that, but it definitely conflicts with our traditional beliefs. With regards to the translation, we were very thankful for Professor's input because we have a better understanding of how to format the translation. That being said, however, because we are so our villages are very far apart, and with the different languages, we don't have the proper communication system. We do have radio stations, 7 in the hinterland, covering the different languages, but some of the persons don't have radios. So you still would have to be a second hand. If somebody hears from the radio, they would have to now go and tell the other person, this is what they heard over the radio. Some areas don't have internet services. So even if you put it on Facebook or to try to get telephone communications, that's difficult. So this word of mouth story, remember you can't go to another village, you're restricted within your village. So these are some of the challenges that we have, but the response has been great, even within their own traditional beliefs. And I think if we continue this way, we would be successful in containing the spread of the virus.
Okay, thanks a lot, Ovid. Question, do you know what's happening in the Rupununi and particularly in the crossing over? I mean, I've read that there are quite a few cases and so on down there. Is the message getting out in that area?
The villages in Region 9, we have North Rupununi, we have North Rupununi, South Pakuraimas, South Central, and Deep South. And that is around, along the Ireng River, which creates the border. Going the further south that you go, the river gets very, very small, and you can cross it by just walking across, and then by paddling boat. But the more you come this way, you would have to use outboard engines and so on. So the border is very porous, and Brazilians come across to do business with meat and with farine. Farine is like a granulated from cassava, and they would come across. So business is still going on. People are still visiting. So they know of the sickness, but in some areas, they feel that they can use their traditional medicine for it. But in some cases, some deaths from like snake bite with other complications has been covered under COVID. That's the understanding I get from the So when they report they have 27 COVID cases, somebody who got bit by a snake didn't get proper treatment because the health worker also has COVID. There's a delay in getting them. They put all of that on the COVID umbrella and say that we have that. So, but people are getting it and they know about the gravity of the situation and of the illness, and they're taking the necessary precautions.
Okay, thanks a lot, Ovid. I'm going to go back to Charlene, because we're looking at time. Tell us where the project is now. Like, how many public service announcements have been translated into how many and which languages? How are they being placed on the various media, television, radio, YouTube, the works? And as well, what feedback you're getting from the communities, both the Creolese speaking communities, as well as the indigenous language communities, in terms of take up? Like, are these people doing their own thing? Are they starting to make their own audios and videos and sending it to you to get the Ministry of Health to ratify and so on and so forth? Give us a real update. Where are we now and where are we going? That's Charlene.
Let me start at the end by saying that throughout all of this, I keep asking myself, does the university have any real value in this, right? Because we are acting as university people, intervening in a real situation, a real world situation to support community. And I believe that we could say safely that yes, we have done something that has done some good. And this is it. Let me answer the last question first. What happened very recently is, since the South Rupununi, South Central and South Rupununi has been hit by the virus, the Tushaus started to get a little more serious, it seems to me. Maybe they were serious before, but there seemed to be a greater sense of urgency. And we were contacted by the information officer for South Central, the South Rupununi Development District Council, and she asked for the audios. I have already sent her the audios. Ovid, I had sent her your originals as well. I sent her the ones we did when we came on board. And then I realized that they had already created one themselves. Now they created an audio as well as a video. So what I said to her, let me send the one that was created by the community to the ministry to see if they would endorse it. Since we were now, as Tamir explained, we were now on a budget. We started out by being volunteers. Then the ministry recognized that these people were really working. Let's put them on the UNDP program budget. And the ministry actually endorsed that community created message. So therefore, I felt, okay, so UG does have some kind of value here as a kind of liaison between community and state. And that is where we are in terms of South Rupununi Region 9 issue. In terms of another part of Guyana and another language now, the language, one of the most endangered languages, Lokojan. Perhaps Prof didn't really ask this question, but I'll fit this in. What happened is that the Lokojan speakers said to me some weeks ago, Miss, we hearing, the deputy tutor said to me, Miss, we hearing these languages on the air, but we ain't hearing we own. And I said that to the young lady who worked with Deidre's mom as a research informant. And I think that inspired her. And she does not speak fluently, but we sent her back to her village. She really stays in Georgetown most of the time. We sent her back to the village to work with the elder there that we had identified that we work with more than others. Not only did she work with that elder, but she worked with her father, who had never been before seen as any kind of valuable person to work with in this project. And together with Priest Jones, her father, and Auntie Eileen, who's another elder, we have a small Lokono team that actually produced audios in Lokono for the first ever time and were recorded in studio for the first time. With respect to the other question, how many audios? Dr. Lisser has that answer because she's handling the technical aspect and setting them up on the OneDrive folder and so on. So I'm going to ask her to fill in with those numbers.
Okay, Tamirand.
Okay, right. So for the first batch, which is the batch that was sent out in May, we had, let me not tell you the number of audios, but audio plus the translation totaled 52 files. So literally we have the translation document and audio files going with it, and that total 52. So far, since June, we have a total of 101 files, which also again equals the translated document, the written files plus the audio files. In terms of language breakdown, let me just get this right. For the first batch, we sent out messages in Arekuna, Carib, Creolese, Makushi, Patamuna, Wai Wai, and Wapichan and Warrau. We had 2 languages missing from that set. However, for the batch that has gone out since June to date, all the languages are represented. So there is, not all the languages. There is Akawaio, which is now on board, but we have yet to send the Akawaio files. But all the other languages are now represented. In terms of the content of messages, in the first batch, we sent out messages relating to basic precautions, how to wash your hands, messages related to COVID-19 prevention. We have signs and symptoms. We had a children hand washing video, messages with regard to coughing and sneezing, home quarantine, social distancing, and so on. But for the second batch, we have other types of messages relating to like the border crossings, messages such as those telling us about domestic travel, social gathering, phased reopening. We had messages for specific groups of people. So those that are high risk, such as HIV and hypertension and diabetes. We also did messages for a specific community, which was the Moruca community. And I am very pleased that 2 days ago, it was in the papers that Moruca, I could say Moruca, Santa Rosa specifically, that had reported over 80-something cases reported 2 days ago to be COVID-free. So yes, we did those messages too. I think that is that really about the different types of messages that we sent.
Okay, now, had we had, because, more time, now that we got the basic facts, we would have gone into the background of the how, because of course, all the people between Ovid, Charlene, Tamirand, and even myself know about the tears and the confusion and the cussing, the real life thing that needs to go into getting something to happen. So what I would say is, don't let it sound good. And I keep saying to them, the Guyana people, that when I asked Charlene, I raised it, the question was, but we have nothing, right? Because they know everybody, Ovid, me, everybody can give a long list of everything that is wrong. That should have been done better, could have been done better, should have taste, how slow it is, who vexed, But the key point is this, that what was really important for me is that something had happened, something concrete had happened. It wasn't perfect. I could tell you all kind, a lot of the transitions not so great, and the voice not so great, and they had noise in the background of fold and dog barking and in broadcasting, and people vex and say it's not fit for broadcast. All them kind of thing happen, right? So it is not perfect, but it is happening. And so on another occasion, maybe next year or some other time, if SCL wants to do a special feature, we could bring the folk back this time, not for the nice PR thing, no, where we tell you, because I think this was important for them to, as people involved, realize that this dirty project that wasn't properly planned, and we try a thing and we never used to get, we couldn't meet at different times because people couldn't make it, you name the confusion, right? That was really important to use this forum to say to them what you've done, forcing them to recognize that this was really important. This is groundbreaking work and activity. So that was the reason for this. But we need another interview now to tell you how it actually goes, right? So for those people who are looking on and saying, yeah, how these Guyanese do it and this, don't be impressed, right? You understand? Because as a simple example, the first Creolese public service announcement that went out, I sit down in my bed with a phone and do the thing and send it to my sister. So she said she don't like it. And I try a different thing again, and I send it off as a trial to Charlene. Next thing I know, they tell me they're on radio. So you understand, it was a trial, right? So them kind of thing, they said they played it. So the very first one was a tryout, a second trial to see how it goes. But it starts something. So just in terms of so that's what we need next. A real how it go thing, where you get into the nitty-gritty of the mix-ups and the thing and so on. But before we go, I just want to give everybody a chance to say a last word, right? So panel starting with Charlene, then Tamirand, then Ovid. Last word.
Right. This is not the last word. This is just a little insert. He might feel even worse if I tell you, if they didn't play the Creolese message, they might have frightened them, or tell them how the mother make them. Most Guyanese know me by now as such a rabid Creolese activist that they just do it to quiet me down, Now, for me, what was the most, the thing that probably is giving us something sustainable to move forward to is that some of the young people that work with us were actually UG students. The Arekuna young lady is a student right now in first year at the University of Guyana. So there is a lot of possibility to build something right at UG where we have a student who's experienced this situation. There was another student involved. He is a Creole speaker, but he admits his Creole isn't very strong. At least 4 students are involved in this project who are still currently students. No, more than 4 actually, right, Tamir? About 6 students. 6 students. What is also very crucial for me is that we got our administration to see the value of it. And by Professor Devonish's a little nudge he gave us, we've agreed to award certificates to the people who worked on the translation project. University of Guyana certificates with the endorsement of UE linguists. And that has also been given good credit by Pro-Chancellor himself, as well as someone who created one of the people who were at the foundation of what we call at UG, the Amerindian Research Unit, Dr. Janet Boka, and she thought it was a really wonderful idea to give certificates. So here we have, for me, I know I'm talking too long, is an emerging real community-driven university project. And for me, that is more important than probably anything else, because it's still very much at the university, still deeply embedded in a colonial tradition, where education is something that doesn't seem really to be connected to transformation and national development.
Right.
Okay. Yes, Tamirand?
All right, so just to my little last word on this is the importance, as we see, it is not only to save lives, but also to save languages. Also, just translating this, and I recall my students' work where they sent an article to the local papers detailing how much this project is beneficial, not only to saving the lives of people, but as it relates to our own views on language, language change, language identity, issues relating to language maintenance and revitalization, issues relating to language planning and policy, language rights of speakers. All of these are things that are critical to this project, even though we started it just as translation, trying to get information out to people. It has all of these as underlying considerations, which I believe are very important to how we move forward with languages in Guyana.
Okay, thanks. And Ovid?
Thank you. This exercise, this project highlighted some problems that we have in actually how do we blend the coastland culture together with the indigenous culture. It highlighted that we have really lots of differences. And the beliefs that were propagated during this time, we were awaiting our elections results. And over that 5 years, some thought it was a political ploy with these illnesses and then the whole translation thing too. So that was a challenge. But when this is all said and done, I think it's the step using the university towards documenting the indigenous culture and beliefs in our heritage, our cuisine, our beliefs and customs, and how we actually live. So I think this is a step towards achieving that in the long term. Of course, bearing in mind our cultural differences, but I think it's a step towards that. And I'm asking this group, the Caribbean Linguistics Association or group, if they had any experience, what they can suggest to us, how we can tackle the problems that we just highlighted, and to see what other recommendations they can make so that we can make one big language family.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thanks, Ovid. And just doing very quickly the chairman's prerogative here to quickly say that in the case of Wai Wai, there was one young woman, I forget her name now, but who was doing translations in Wai Wai, but the Wai Wai weren't in touch, as it were, with the regular radio and television, the radio communications and so on. But somehow that she managed, I think, to get WhatsApp messages or a WhatsApp message to someone in the Rupununi, right, on the Guyana side of the border for that Wai Wai community. And they got it, I think, across the border to Brazil. At the same time, in the case of Suriname, there are Wai Wai speakers living on the Suriname side of the border. And periodically they cross the border, I think once every week, to use the Wi-Fi at the Guyana Army barracks or compound in the area. And so she would send messages, and when they come across once a week, they get the message. So that it was a very unusual, when we started, we was thinking about radio and television, and in the end, they use WhatsApp networks, telephone networks, everything to get it out. And I think that's where this project is going, trying to figure out what are the most effective ways to get things and get messages to people. So thanks again. And sorry for going on so long.
All right. Thank you very much, the group from Guyana. Very interesting, very innovative project, riddled with problems along the way, but you guys managed to overcome. And as Ovid said, if there's any way in which a Society for Caribbean Linguistics can assist, whether it mean mobilizing whatever kind of resources that we have in terms of translation and public service announcements, then by all means, we will lend a hand, right? No doubt about that. I will leave the questions for this group until the total end of the session.